story of the Weimar Republic starts in 1918. Germany had just lost World War I, and in the chaos that followed, the Kaiser abdicated. As a result, a group of politicians got together in the town of Weimar and created a democratic republic. This new republic soon had to conform with the Treaty of Versailles, which forced Germany to give up territory, massively reduce its armed forces, pay huge reparations, and accept full responsibility for the war. And if you thought financial ruin and international isolation was bad enough, the government now had to deal with revolts. Firstly by the communists trying to start a revolution like that in Russia, and then from the right trying to get rid of the elected parliament. And that was just in the first 2 years. So how did the Weimar Republic work? Well, first off you have the head of state, in this case the president. He's called Friedrich Ebert, and his job gave him more power than God. It was the president's job to appoint the government and also command the armed forces. He could also enact his own laws without the consent of Parliament in emergencies. What's that? There's no definition of an emergency in the Constitution? Yeah, there's gonna be a crisis here. Next up is the Chancellor, who was in charge of the Parliament. Unfortunately, Weimar Germany used a system called proportional representation. What's that? Well, essentially, if you have a party and you get 10% of the vote, you get 10% of the seats in the Parliament. As a result, this made it very difficult to get a majority, and as a result, most governments ended up as coalitions. In 1923, Germany missed a reparations payment, and so the French occupied the Ruhr. What followed this was a massive hyperinflation crisis due to the government printing more money to pay the striking workers. And just when you thought things couldn't get crazier, Adolf Hitler came along and tried to overthrow the government. With all this in mind, you'd think the country was about to collapse. But don't worry, for a time at least, things are going to get better. Enter Gustav Stresemann, generally considered to be one of the greatest foreign ministers ever. In the space of 6 years, he managed to reintegrate Germany into the international community, revise the Treaty of Versailles and reduce the war reparations, he got the French to leave the Ruhr, and also got America to loan Germany money through the Dawes Plan. It's worth noting that this guy was no saint. After all, he was only willing to accept the new western borders and was perfectly happy with the idea of using the army to reconquer the territory lost to Poland. So back to the government. Oh, Ebert died. So in 1925, the German people got to elect a new president. Now here's the problem. At this point, democracy was still a relatively new concept to most German people. So many just voted for people who were either A, popular, or B, promising to bring back the good times. So since this is the Weimar Republic, you'd expect them to elect someone who was pro-democratic and a Republican. But no. The Germans elected Paul von Hindenburg, an old war hero who wasn't the biggest fan of democracy and was also a monarchist. But hey, 0 out of 2 isn't bad. This guy was also very old. Seriously, he was 77 at his first inauguration, for Christ's sake. To be fair to Hindenburg, for the first few years he did respect the Constitution, and the country continued to prosper. But then 1929 rolled around, Stresemann died, and then the American stock market crashed, causing America to pull all its money out of Germany, thus throwing it into another financial crisis. Just to top things off, the current coalition government broke down, and Hindenburg had to call for a new election in 1930. This did not go well, and now the Nazis and the Communists had a major voice in Parliament. So what's Hitler been doing all this time? Well, after attempting to overthrow the government, he went to jail for 9 months, in which time he wrote Mein Kampf, which set out the Nazi ideology and also made him famous. Back in the Parliament, the Democratic parties could no longer form a coalition, and as a result, Hindenburg was forced to appoint minority governments and rule by emergency decree only. We can safely say that from this point onward, democracy in Germany was effectively dead. At this point, the only thing keeping Hitler out of power was an incredibly old yet powerful Hindenburg. Unfortunately, the Parliament kept repealing his laws, and so after nearly 3 years of persuasion and probably a bit of dementia, he agreed to make Hitler the Chancellor. The idea was that Hindenburg's buddy von Papen would be Vice-Chancellor, and together they'd keep Hitler in check. But no. In 1933, the German Parliament burned down. Hitler blamed the Communists and got Hindenburg to pass the Reichstag Fire Decree, which suspended many civil liberties. Over the next year, Hitler tried his best to stay on Hindenburg's good side, probably because he was the only guy who could still get rid of him. But then Hindenburg died, and Hitler used the opportunity to become president as well as Chancellor, and merge the 2 offices to make himself the Führer of Germany. This marks the end of Weimar Germany and the beginning of Nazi Germany, but that's a story for another time. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more, please leave a like and subscribe and tell me what video you